Hey, I'm back again, and this is for the French twos. We're going to be talking a little bit about those little teeny tiny words that you use. In English, we call them prepositions, and they kind of link sentences together. They're sort of those words that you often find on my worksheets at the bottom where it will say vocabulaire supplémentaire, so word bank. Those words like at, to, in, around, to the left of, to the right of. And I thought it might be kind of helpful for you guys to just have them all in one place rather than always having to look back through all your old worksheets and find those little words. So I have made these notes for you. On the back of this, you're going to see this nifty map that you're going to be using to complete a handout. But you can just keep this. Keep this in your notes, in your notebook under the Notes tab. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. I'm going to have you guys to pronounce these, and I'll tell you a little bit about these different prepositions of place, and a few of the words are like directional type words, like I was saying, to the left of, to the right of, to the north of, etc. All right, so I put them alphabetically, starting at the top there with one you've seen a whole bunch over the last couple of years, and that is simply pronounced ah. Ah. Sounds exactly like the verb form has or have, from avoir. So il a, elle a. So it has, he has, she has, one has. I guess those are all has, not have. It's getting kind of late. I'm a little bit tired. But that can mean at, to, or in, just depending on how you're using it. In English, we use all those different words. In French, you only just have to know the one, so it's kind of handy. Now, I will kind of direct your attention to the bottom here. I made you a little chart to show you that the prepositions a and de do contract with your definite article in certain instances. And this is where we get a lot of those words that you guys have been seeing for a couple years now and maybe didn't realize where they were coming from. The contraction O comes from a plus le, so at the, and the is a masculine place. It could be to the or in the. A lot of these you would have seen when we did the notes on aller last year, and there was a list of all the places to go using aller. Like, for instance, we said au zoo, au stade, au lycée. So all of those are masculine nouns, and that's where the O came from. It's a plus le. La doesn't change at all. It's still a la. And l, or the L apostrophe in front of a vowel or a noun that begins with a silent H, it doesn't really change either. It's a l. So, oh, I forgot to give an example for a la pharmacie, à la fête, if you were saying at the pharmacy, at the party. À l, some ones that you did like that last year were à l'école, à l'hôpital, à l'hôtel, etc. And then a plus les contracts to become au, A-U-X. And you'll notice that the masculine singular and the plural form do sound exactly alike. O. It's just that the spelling is different. And we've used O, A-U-X when you're going to a plural location, like if you're going to the races or going to a series of games, like say you're going to a 3-day series of the Cardinals, then you would use O in that instance, au jeu. So let's go through and pronounce these. A plus le becomes O. A plus la becomes a la. A plus l becomes a l. and a plus les becomes o. And we'll get to this other side when we get to de. But back up here, if we want to say around, say you're giving someone directions and you say, okay, you go around the roundabout or go around the hospital to the back entrance, we say autour de. Autour de. The next one, the next preposition you know from last year, we used a ton. Chez means at the home of. Chez. And of course, it can also mean, I don't know if I've told you guys this before, but it can also mean at the business place of or at the workplace of. So if I'm going to say where I work, I would say je travaille chez Carthage High School. Or if you work, say, at Wendy's, you would say je travaille chez Wendy's. If you're going to the doctor, so my doctor is Dr. Croy. If I'm going to her office, I would say je vais chez le docteur Croy. So it can mean at the business place of, at the home of. So a little bit extra info there for you. Now, if you're going to say that something is to the side of something else, you can say à côté de, à côté de. If you're going to say that something is in or inside of, as in inside of a container, inside of a box, that type of a thing, inside of a building, you use dans. Dans. Kind of the difference between dans and ah. They both can, in English, translate to say in. You would use ah if you're saying in a city, in a country, whereas you would use dans talking about a container of some sort or being inside of a building, that type of a thing. That brings us to our next preposition there, de. De. You guys know that from way back when. It can mean of, like the brother of so-and-so. It can mean from, this is a gift from me to you, or belonging to, that goes back to our possessives. So instead of saying, I know I've given this example a lot, but instead of saying Steve's brother, we say the brother of Steve. Or we don't say my aunt's house, we say the house of my aunt. And I know we've talked about that at length over the last 2 years. I won't bore you with it, but I put de there, and then it's also down in your little chart here. So de does contract with your masculine singular. De plus le becomes du. Du. You may have seen this before when we did the fair expressions last year, and a little bit this year as well. We said, for instance, je fais du ski. Faire du ski. It's just a fair expression. It doesn't really translate exactly in English. We wouldn't say to do or make of the ski, but that's where, when you've seen the du in those expressions, faire du ski, faire du patin à glace, and all of those ones like that, that's where it's coming from originally. If you ever wondered, what is the word du? It's a contraction. Now, if you've got a feminine, it doesn't change. It's still de la. De la. If you've got the elided u, it does not change either. It's de lu. And but if you do have the plural, de plus les becomes de. De. And that is a homonym with the word de meaning some. The plural indefinite article. So we had un, une, des. Remember those from that chart of the articles last year, a little bit this year. This is the same word, but it has a different meaning. It really isn't the same word. But I just wanted you to have these in your notes. And several of these prepositional phrases do end in de, and so this will come in handy down here. All right, so back up to our list. If we want to say in front of, say you're telling where you're sitting in the room. I sit in front of Josh. I sit in front of Eli. Well, actually, no one sits in front of Eli because he is no longer in French. You can tell him if you see him. I'm not happy about that. But to say in front of, we have the word devant. Devant. And this one's kind of handy because it has the preposition built in there, devant, and you're not having to say the extra word of, it's just already built in there. That's where the de in devant comes from. Our next one is if you're saying behind, so for instance, let's see, Lowe's is behind Walmart in a sense, or I sit behind Alex, etc. That is the word derrière, derrière. And you're probably giggling. That word also means behind in the body part sense as well. And that's where we get the word derriere in English from. So, new fact for you. All right. If you want to say to the right of, so the desk I'm looking at is to the right of the other desk. You're going to say à droite de. À droite de. All right. Then if you need to say between, so something is in between two other places, like you might say Walmart is in between Walgreens and Taco Bell. Then you're going to say entre. Entre. If you need to say that something is to the east of something else, you will say à l'est de. À l'est de. Now, it's pretty important that we talk about that guy because this breaks one of our cardinal rules of pronunciation, doesn't it? Normally, unless we're being careful, so C, R, F, and L, we don't usually pronounce the last consonant of a word. And in fact, the word EST is normally in French the verb is. So he is, she is, il est, elle est. But here it's totally different. You do pronounce it, and the reason we are pronouncing it is so that people don't confuse it with the verb is. But it's spelled exactly the same, and it's really important that you do pronounce the T here, that you don't pronounce it when you're talking about the verb. So again, that guy is à l'est de. If you need to say that something is outside of something else, so for instance, you're going to say, well, HH is outside of the city limits of Carthage, most of it. You would say à l'extérieur de. À l'extérieur de. If you need to say that something is to the left of something else, you're going to say à gauche de. À gauche de. So if I need to say the sentence, gosh, my house is to the left of the supermarket. It really isn't, but just for this example, you would say ma maison est à gauche du supermarché. So see, I used my contraction down there because supermarché is masculine, so it's le supermarché. If I want to say that it's to the left of, I would say à gauche du supermarché. That's going to come in handy here in just a moment when we get to the other paper. So, All right, so that was à gauche de. If you need to say that something is inside of something else, for instance, you're telling someone, oh, there's a Subway inside of Walmart, you can say à l'intérieur de. À l'intérieur de. So Subway est à l'intérieur de Walmart. All right, if you need to say that something is far away from another thing, you're going to say loin de. Loin de. So maybe you're saying le centre commercial est loin de ma maison. So the mall is far away from my house. If you need to say that something is to the north of, like Santa Claus lives to the north of us, you're going to say au nord de. Au nord de. So, Père Noël habite au nord de chez nous. Santa Claus lives to the north of our homes. All right, if you need to say that something is nearby to or close to, near to, you'll say près de. Près de. So, mon thé glacé est près de moi. My iced tea is close to me. As you know, it's never far from me. Next up, we've got to the west of. So, à l'ouest de. And again, that's à l'ouest de. Then you've got to the south of. Au sud de. Au sud de. Au sud de. So, Walmart est au sud de chez moi. Walmart is to the south of my house. And if you're going towards something, so you're walking towards a person, you're walking towards a building, you're going to say vers. Vers. So maybe you might use the sentence Je marche vers l'école. I'm walking towards the school. Alrighty, those are our direction words and prepositions of place, just the pronunciations of those. Now on the back of this paper, you've got this nifty little map, and then you're also going to have this handout that Mrs. Grau is going to give you. So this is using prepositions of place. And it's got 3 different sections in it. Just kidding, I think it's actually 2 sections. Yeah, it's just that the second section has 2 parts to it. Okay, so in the first section, you need your map to answer the questions. So let's look at these questions. The instructions there say use the map to answer with the preposition shown in parentheses. So you got to use the one that's shown on here. Use complete sentences. So we're looking at our nifty little map, and I'm sorry that this is so super janky. I have absolutely no graphic design skills whatsoever, and if anyone is looking for a really great FOC, I would love to have this in a better, less janky format. I've been asking for several years for someone to recreate this in a little bit nicer map. Nobody's ever taken me up on the challenge, but I would love to see this a little bit better than what it is. But it's just got some of our places to go using Allez from last year. They're the same pictures from our flashcards. And then I put some street names, some are named after celebrities. And then there's like Kitten Avenue, there's Duck Boulevard, there's Bacon Street, there's Orange Avenue, so Orange Avenue, there's Beaver Boulevard, and Mathieu Chédid Avenue. Mathieu Chédid is M. He is one of my favorite rock stars in France. All right, so let's look at the first one here as an example. It says, où est l'hôtel? And it reminds you that l'hôtel is masculine. That's going to come in handy here. And it's asking you to say that it is près de somewhere. So that question is asking you, where is the hotel? And it wants you to say that it's near to some other place. So let's look at our map and find our hotel. And it looks like our hotel is up here. You've got the bellboy taking the couple's luggage, and he's going to take it up to their room. And it's on Bacon Street, just around the roundabout there. It's near the hospital. It's also near the mall. I'd say it's closer to the mall than to the hospital, actually. So if I were going to answer this one, I would probably say the hotel is close or near to the mall. And the way I would answer that is I would say l'hôtel est près de, and then I've got to say mall. Mall is le centre commercial. But over here I had de and then le. So I've got to use my chart and contract those two together, so my completed sentence will say l'hôtel est près du centre commercial. L'hôtel est près du centre commercial. Now, if you wanted to switch it up a little and say instead that it is close to the hospital, you don't have to contract it then. You could simply say l'hôtel est près de l'hôpital. Either of those would work. So that's how you fill out part one. You don't need to do any translating, just simply answer and complete sentences with the prepositions shown in parentheses. All right, then the second section, it's got this page here. It's got some of the places to go using Ollie the clip art from last year, and then it's got some little icons up here at the top to show you the words for circle, heart, arrow, rectangle, smiley face, star, square, sun, triangle, and flower. And you've got all these places, then you gotta flip to the last page and it gives you instructions on what to do. So it says placer or place, and we'll just look at number one, un cercle autour de la banque. So it says place a circle around the bank. So I look back at all of my pictures here, and I see, oh, here's the one, there's the teller and the guy is getting money out, so I'm going to place a circle around this one. Then let's look at another one. Let's see, let's do, I guess, the second one. It says placer un cœur à droite de la maison de Clifford. So place a heart to the right of the house of Clifford, or in other words, Clifford's house. So place a heart to the right of Clifford's house. So I gotta find Clifford. Remember who he is? That's right, he's the big red dog right here. So I've got to place a heart to the right of his house. So here's his house. I've got to figure out which is my right and my left. Sometimes I do this to figure out which is which. And then I'm just going to draw a heart off to the side. That's how simple this is. So you just got to do part one, and then part two, it's really just drawing little icons over and around and using those directions, your prepositions and your directional words on here. I hope that's not too confusing. I just wanted you to have a little practice with being able to give some directions or answer incomplete sentences using those prepositions and those directional words, because starting next week, we're going to be designing our dream houses and telling about the dream houses, and when you're telling about them, you're going to need to be able to say, oh, this is to To the right of this is such and such. Around the house is a yard. Inside of the garage is 3 brand new cars, and so on and so forth. So you're going to do this, you're going to go over it together, and you're going to turn it in. All right. Oh, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for listening.